Welcome to the Career Matters podcast. I am your host, Nisar Ahmed. I am the founder and editor of the blog CareerMatters.com. And this is episode 19 of the Career Matters podcast. And this episode is part of the Expert Series. And for today's Career Expert Series episode, I'm interviewing Wendi Weiner. In a moment, I will have Wendi talk a little bit more about herself, but I just thought it would be good to set the frame in terms of her accomplishments and experience. So I do have a brief bio I'm going to read. Wendi Weiner is a 4 times certified executive resume writer and career transition coach. She's a board member of the National Resume Writers Association. She's also a member of the Forbes Coaches Council. She's also a regular contributor to the Huffington Post, Forbes, and CareerRealism. Wendi, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I always love to hear from my guests their story. First of all, a little bit about yourself and also how you came about becoming a resume writer and a career coach. So please let us, please introduce yourself.
Sure. So I've been an attorney for over 12 years, and one of the biggest questions that I often get is, how did you go from being an attorney for 12 years to being a powerhouse resume writer? And what I tell people is that I was very passionate about the law, but I seem to have hit a crossroad in my career as a lawyer where I lost the passion. I had in my legal career, I was a corporate attorney for a huge insurance company that was a Fortune 200 company. I had a great salary, 401k, company car, but something just resonated in me that this was not my calling. Previously, I had taught college writing classes for 7 years, and it was something that I really enjoyed. I come from 2 educators. Both my parents were educators for almost 20 years. My dad was a principal. My mom was an assistant principal. So there was always something in me that I loved nurturing other people and listening to them and helping them. And back in 2010, I had started the business. The name The Writing Guru actually was a nickname that my parents had for me, so it became the company name. And I just found that I really enjoyed helping people with their resumes. And in 2013, I really took a turn in the business and just began to do more stuff. I began to join organizations in the resume writing industry. And in just a couple of years, I rose to the top. I think a big part of that, too, is the fact that I have a legal background. Lawyers are trained to think very differently. We're used to only having 5 minutes to make a valid and strong argument to the judge, and it's very similar in resume writing because you only have less than 10 seconds to capture the reader's attention. So very much like making a solid, compelling legal argument, you have to make a solid, compelling resume.
Yeah, thanks for covering that because you and I spoke before, and I was going to ask how you went about going from an attorney to a resume writer, and I see the connection. So thanks for bringing that up. And just for my and the reader and the listeners' understanding, which city are you based out of?
I am actually based out of Miami, Florida.
Uh-huh. And of course, Miami is a city, if anywhere in the world, everyone knows something about Miami. It's a well-known city globally. Is there something, according to you, is there a fact about Miami that most people do not know about, something interesting, something different?
Miami is a real melting pot city. It represents a lot of different cultures. It's definitely very multicultural. A lot of people move here for the weather and the beaches. And it definitely has a big popularity for businesses to grow, as well as a very large population of attorneys.
Okay, wonderful. So now we will get into the questions that I wanted to ask you. You specialize in resumes and career coaching. The first thing, I mean, you've worked with clients from different walks of life, different industries. what do you see are some of the biggest challenges that job seekers come to you for?
Most job seekers that come to me feel as though they've reached sort of a dead end in their career, very much how I felt as a lawyer, where they're making great money, but they want more. There's something missing. There's a missing link in their career, whether it is feeling unenthusiastic about where they are, or they've reached the ceiling at a company, which happens a lot in executive roles. Sometimes there's just no more ways to increase or rise to a greater level. So a lot of times the clients come to me with the idea of wanting to start their job search, but finding it difficult to formulate the right view in their resume, because a lot of times when you're writing a resume, you're writing it from a very subjective standpoint. Whereas being a resume writer, you learn and you know how to write a resume based on an objective person's point of view.
What would you say are some of the top tips that you would provide to individuals looking to make their resume better?
Sure. So one of the most important things in a resume today is having a branding statement at the top that really focuses in on your core industry and areas of focus. For example, if you're a senior sales and marketing executive, that would formulate the basis of your branding statement. But it's also important to include underneath that 4 or even as little as 3 key areas of focus. So it could be things such as business development, client relationships. It could be driving explosive revenue growth, certain keywords that are very industry specific to give the reader an idea and to hone in on those skill sets that you have mastered. Another top thing to do in a resume today is to have a professional summary that really highlights your credentials and sells your value. I've had clients come to me where they have stellar academic credentials. For example, lawyers who have worked at AmLaw 100 law firms, were top 5% of their class, were on law review, and they don't put that information in the professional summary. And the reason for the professional summary is that the top third of your resume is really what's scanned in those 5 to 7 seconds. And so ultimately what you want to do is have a branding statement and a professional summary that comport with one another to market and sell your strategic value. The other thing that's extremely important in resumes today is focusing in on key achievements, accomplishments, major contributions, key projects that you've worked on. The idea today is to be able to differentiate yourself from the other competitors out there who are obviously the job seekers. The average job posting brings in over 250 applications. So your competition is very fierce. And that's why a lot of people today turn to resume writers to have a competitive advantage and leverage in the job search market.
Okay. I mean, that's an interesting number, 250 applications for one job. Wow. That's some heavy competition right there.
It is. It definitely is. And I think that the more clientele that I work with, and I work with diverse clientele, 85% of my clients are senior executives, directors, and C-level leaders. I work with people globally. So, for example, I recently booked a client in England. I work with a lot of people across the United States, and each person has a very different background. I work with sales and marketing, lawyers, obviously, finance and accounting professionals. I also work with a lot of IT and engineering professionals. And when they come to me, a lot of times they don't necessarily see what's wrong with their resume, which is why I do a lot of consultation calls, because the consultation call, the idea is to take the person through the roadmap of their resume to show them how it can be improved, what the strengths and weaknesses are, and what employers are looking today in a resume.
Okay. Now, the resume has been around for a long time, and it continues to be still something that is very important. One thing that has become very, very important recently, in my opinion, and I want your opinion, is LinkedIn. So what are your thoughts on LinkedIn? How important or relevant is LinkedIn when looking for a job?
I actually think that your LinkedIn profile is more compelling than your resume. And I wrote an article in the Huffington Post, why your LinkedIn profile is more compelling than your resume. It was published last year. And it's huge because if you think about it for a second, your resume is only getting distributed to a hand select number of people, but companies that you're applying to and uploading your resume directly to, or let's say the professionals or hiring managers that you're immediately sending your resume to. But LinkedIn has 400 plus million users. I think it's every 2 seconds a new person joins LinkedIn. So if you think about it, being on LinkedIn, having a powerful and compelling profile opens the door to so many more opportunities. The other thing that I tell people today is that job search boards only have an average of a 4% rate of return. And there are statistics out there that show that 70% of jobs are acquired through active networking, which is what LinkedIn is set up to do. Now, if you were to ask me if LinkedIn was important 5 years ago, I would tell you it's nice to have a profile, but it's not leveraging your job search. But today, with the way the digital age is, if you don't have a powerful LinkedIn profile, you are missing out not just on career opportunities, but if you're a business owner, you're missing out on marketing opportunities, ways to leverage your brand, ways to acquire new clients. You just never know who is sitting on LinkedIn waiting to connect with you.
That is true, and as a matter of fact, you and I are connected both on LinkedIn and Twitter, and one of the in addition to job search, it has this whole networking element, which is amazing. You connect with great individuals with whom you can learn from.
It's true, and there's different groups that you can learn from as well. I mean, I'm connected to professionals who are resume writers, career coaches. It's a great way to formulate not just collegial relationships, but also to take it a step further where you can go into groups and become an engaging thought leader. Again, the LinkedIn profile is only as good as you leverage it. So there are a few tips that I always recommend in a LinkedIn profile. Number one, you want to have a professional photo. And I just wrote an article in the Huffington Post recently about why not having a professional photo could actually be hindering your career. And the reason for that is statistics say that a person with a professional headshot has a 14 times greater chance of getting noticed. So not having a selfie, not having an inappropriate photo. You want to have a professionally taken photo by a photographer. There's many ways to do it. You can look for a local photographer. You can find a local photographer on LinkedIn. You can actually find a local photographer through Facebook and other social media methods. You can even go on Groupon or Living Social to find a deal for a professional headshot, or I even recommend going to JCPenney or Sears if you're on a budget. But the idea is that when a person looks at your profile, the first thing that they're doing is getting that first impression of your picture. So you want to have a professionally taken photo as your LinkedIn photo. The other thing too that's really important is having a broad-based headline. So not just having your job title, owner of the writing group. That doesn't tell people what I do. So if you were to look at my LinkedIn profile, the first thing that I tell you is I'm an attorney, that I'm a career and LinkedIn expert, that I'm a 4-time certified resume writer and career coach, and I'm also a speaker because I do a lot of national and public speaking engagement. And the idea is to allow yourself to become more engaged, to expand your network, and also to become really a thought leader in your industry. It's a great way to polish your professional skills. I can't tell you how many clients of mine have acquired jobs through having a powerful LinkedIn profile. In fact, I want to just share a brief story if I can. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I had a client who was not really a LinkedIn user. We did her resume, we did her profile, and she was not using LinkedIn to really network, but she was actually applying for jobs on LinkedIn. She got recruited by a healthcare company that wound up finding her on LinkedIn, liked her profile, asked if she wanted to come in for an interview. She had never worked in the healthcare industry. She was a sales and marketing associate. She wound up taking a job with this healthcare company. They flew her out to Salt Lake City, Utah, to interview and train, and she's been working there almost a year and absolutely loved it. So you just never know what opportunities can present themselves by having a powerful LinkedIn profile. But what I always recommend to everyone who has a LinkedIn profile is you really want to navigate through the channels of LinkedIn properly. You want to have as close to 500 connections as possible. You want to have at least 15 skills on your LinkedIn profile. You want to get endorsed. So in order to get endorsed, you have to endorse other people. You want to get written recommendations. And the reason why is if you think about it, having a written recommendation on your LinkedIn profile gives you authority, trust, and credibility. So whether you're a business owner or a job seeker, it's really important to have those written recommendations. And of course, being engaged on LinkedIn, sharing articles, posting articles, status updates, things like that. It's just extremely important in today's digital world.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that story, and it's great because I've come across, I'm sure you have come across individuals who, for whatever reason, think they do not need a LinkedIn profile, and so that story just restates the fact that it is very important and how it can help you with your with you helping you to find that great career that you're looking for.
Exactly, and I think one of the things that people forget is how important it is, especially for executives, to have that executive level profile. So you want to have a professionally written profile. The other thing too that I tell people all the time is the biggest mistake that you can make with LinkedIn is taking your resume and dumping it into your LinkedIn profile, meaning copying and pasting your resume into your LinkedIn profile, because what you're doing is you're opening up the door for people to plagiarize you. And the idea is that your LinkedIn profile should complement your resume. It should not be a copy and paste of your resume. I like to use first person pronouns, I, me, my, in a LinkedIn profile. But pronouns are not appropriate for a resume because a resume is technically supposed to be a very sophisticated style of writing. So the idea with LinkedIn is that you can share your personal career story with people to really engage them and let them know more about you as an individual and as a career professional, whereas your resume is pointed more towards the formal direction of your career.
Great. So now, Wendi, so someone has optimized their resume, they've got a great LinkedIn profile, and they've got their call for that interview that they've been waiting for. So now they're in the job interview process. So this is, it's hard, as you mentioned, there's a lot of competition. It is sometimes difficult to get an interview. So how does one maximize that opportunity when they are given a shot to interview at a company?
Sure. So one of the first things that I recommend is learning about the company and learning about your interviewer. Today, with how powerful LinkedIn is, it makes people accessible to one another. So what I always recommend is finding out who is interviewing you. And there's nothing wrong with asking. When the company calls you, you just casually ask, and who will I be interviewing with? I want to learn more about them as well as learn about the types of projects that they've worked on. So it shows that you're active, it shows that you're engaged, and also it's a great conversation piece. A lot of times when I would learn about another lawyer who was interviewing me, I would write down a piece of information that really piqued my interest from their profile. So for example, sometimes I would read that a person was very involved in the community doing philanthropy. I'm very involved in the community doing philanthropy, and that was a great icebreaker. There was a point where I was very involved in running races. So if I found out that the person interviewing me was a runner, that would be a great icebreaker too. So the idea is to learn about what the person stands for, what their mission is, as well as what the company stands for. So you also want to try to look back and acquire the job posting, because one of the things that I recommend is reviewing and studying that job posting before you go in for the interview, because ultimately the company is looking to hire someone who mirrors the candidate described in that job posting. So if the job posting focuses a lot on collaboration, communication, interpersonal skills, someone who's able to work in fast-paced environments and has a strong ability to prioritize and multitask, those are key words that you want to sell as qualities and attributes of yourself in the interview and not overlook them.
Okay, and have you come across, like you've coached candidates on their interview process? Are there some, maybe you already answered this in your tips, but what would you say on the flip side are some of the mistakes that candidates make, like some of the common mistakes?
Sure. I think one of the most common mistakes that people make when they go on an interview is that their top priority and concern is what is the salary. And you don't want to ask that question until the very end of the interview or at least until the second interview. Because if you go into an interview and all you care about is what salary you're going to earn, then it gives the company a negative perception of you, that you're not there to really grow at the company, to make a difference, that you're just out for the money. And look, I get it, because money is what pays the bills. But at the end of the day, companies want to hire people who want to grow, who want to be committed, and who are ultimately going to produce for that company to help the company better its business objectives. So do not ask off the bat what the salary is. I always recommend, as part of a negotiation tactic, and I do a lot of salary negotiation coaching with clients, is you want to let the company make the offer first, because it's very much like going to a car dealership and you say, I only want to pay $250 a month. Well, now you've just bid against yourself, because the dealership's not going to come at you at $240 a month. They're going to come at you at $265 a month, and then you have to negotiate from there. So what you really want to focus in on is allowing the company to come at you with the information about the salary and the benefits, whereas your focus should be more on what you can bring to the company in terms of your value as a worker. Another thing that a lot of people mistake in an interview setting is dressing not for the part. So what I recommend is, don't dress for the job you have, dress for the job you want. So you definitely want to wear a business suit that is dark and conservative in color. Ladies, if you're going to an interview, do not have a crazy color painted on your nails. Have something very natural, whether it's a French manicure or a very pale light pink. You want to be as conservative and professional as possible. If you have tattoos, you want to cover them up. If you are going to wear a pantsuit, ladies, which is very highly acceptable today, you also want to wear closed-toed shoes. And most importantly, I think it's a great sign of class and sophistication to actually have a leather portfolio folder with you on an interview. I recommend this to my clients. And in that leather portfolio folder, you're going to put at least 3 copies of your resume, because you never know that if you go in the interview to meet with just one person, the company may like you so much that they want you to meet with 2 additional executive partners. So you want to be prepared and always have extra copies of your resume with you.
I can, regarding the last point you just mentioned, the 3 copies of resume, I've been in situations where, this is going back many years when I was starting out, where I did not have enough copies. I trusted the hiring manager to print some, and it did delay the interview. They had to go back. It broke the flow of the interview. So I can attest to that. It's better to be over-prepared than to be under-prepared, I guess.
Yes, I agree. And then one of the stories that I actually like to share is my own personal story is, what happens when things really, truly go wrong at the interview. I went to one of the first interviews as a young attorney at a very large law firm. I wound up working there. It was my first job out of law school. And so when I went for the interview, I actually found a great parking spot on the second floor of the garage. And I got out of the car and I kicked a can. Thought it was a can of Diet Coke. I looked down and it was actually a can of sardines. I know that sounds unbelievable, but literally there was a can of sardines on the ground, open can, and I kicked it. Sardine juice went on my brand new $150 interview shoes that I only use for interviews, and I smelled like rotten fish. And so I remember running through the parking garage. I had to arrive 15 minutes early, freaking out because this is the biggest interview of my life. This is an interview with a large, prestigious firm that I wanted to work for, that everyone knew about, and I had sardine juice on my shoes. I literally put my foot in the sink, tried to scrub it off, tried to use hand sanitizer. All I smelled was the sardine juice. And I remember going in on the interview thinking to myself, like, I have to put the fact that I probably smell like bad fish aside in order to properly gauge and sell myself on the interview. Funniest part of the story is that when I was running through the parking garage to try to find a bathroom, there was a group of women smoking in the garage. And I said, listen, I just kicked a can of sardines. I have this major interview at this big law firm. Where's the closest bathroom? They looked at me like I was crazy. I wound up going on the interview, getting a job offer, and when they sent me an email to congratulate me, they put a picture of a can of sardines in the email because they thought it was so funny. Like, who steps in a can of sardines before a major job interview? But it happened to me I love to tell the story because I worked at that law firm for several years. It was really my first job out of law school. But it just goes to show you that sometimes your interview horror story can be your interview success story. And I love to share that because it's something that no one in their right mind would think could possibly happen to them. And it happened to me, and I still succeeded because I had to really put back and change my mindset to focus on what I was there for. What was my purpose? What did I want to achieve? And so ultimately, what you think can be your worst interview experience can wind up being your most successful one.
So that brings me to one of the final points, and I should have asked this at the beginning, but it's important. We talked a lot about the technicalities, right? We talked about resumes, LinkedIn, interviews, and salaries. One thing I want to hear from you is mindset. Some people lose jobs. Unfortunately, there's been a layoff. They get fired. Some people are unhappy. They're looking for a job. What type of mindset do you recommend job seekers ideally must have before they start the process?
That's a great question. So one of the most important mindsets that I recommend that job seekers have is they have to treat applying for a job as almost a full-time job itself. So if you're just casually uploading your resume to job search boards, that's not really true job searching. You need to be out there contacting recruiters, connecting with them on LinkedIn, looking up the hiring managers of companies, connecting directly with them by sending a personalized e-note. I also recommend attending networking events. A lot of people knock networking events as just happy hour mixers, but the reality is that you just never know when your next business opportunity is going to present itself. You really want to be present. You really want to be engaged. I go to a lot of networking events, not as many now locally as I used to when I first was really starting to build my business, but I still get out there and actively network because you just never know where your next client is going to come from. Very recently, I received a message from someone on LinkedIn who had come across information regarding a speaking engagement I did and had read an article I wrote. And this person is a big IT director for a company up in New York. It's a global organization. I just recently had a business meeting with him about doing a workshop for his company on powerful LinkedIn profiles because a lot of people, again, underestimate the value of a powerful LinkedIn profile today. But in terms of job searching, you have to really look at it from a multifaceted perspective. So it's not just about, again, sending your resume through email or uploading it through a job search portal or applying online. It's more about reaching out to your network, expanding your network, and seeking out the opportunities themselves. And that's a mistake that a lot of job seekers make today because we are so pre-programmed and accustomed to applying for a job the way that we did 5, 10, 15 years ago. And that's problematic for a lot of my clients who are executives because now it's been 15 years since they last had to look for a job, and they're finding themselves in a rut because they always just got a job by knowing someone or by uploading their resume, and now they really have to get out there and be engaged and effectively network in order to acquire those next job opportunities.
That's great. Thanks for summarizing that. Now, Wendi, if after listening to this, audience wanted to get more information from you, learn more from you, or reach out to you, what would be the best way?
I definitely recommend connecting with me on LinkedIn. You can go ahead and search for me, Wendi Weiner, or if you look up The Writing Guru, my website is writingguru.net, so it's www.writingguru.net. You can also find me on Twitter, Instagram, as well as Facebook. I do free 30-minute, no-obligation consultations with all clients. You can actually upload your resume directly through my website portal and book your consultation directly on the website.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, and I'll make sure to add all the links that you just mentioned with the social media, the website, email, and LinkedIn when I write up a summary for this interview in a blog post. So I'll do that.
Thank you.
Since now we are coming to the end, before we conclude, Wendi, are there any last words, anything that we missed to cover during today's call?
No, I think that one of the important things that people need to consider today is just how powerful a professionally written resume or LinkedIn profile can be for you, whether you're a business owner or a career professional who is looking to apply for another job. The other thing too to really consider is that you should always have your resume current and up to date. You never know when the next opportunity is going to present itself. I've had people contact me before that find themselves in a quandary because they didn't update their resume. They don't have updated information in there, and someone wants their resume because there's a job opportunity for them. So always have your resume updated. One very important tip that I recommend to all career professionals, whether you're looking for a job or you're not, keep a brag sheet. A brag sheet is a list of different types of accomplishments, key projects, and acknowledgments from coworkers and supervisors. And by keeping a brag sheet in a folder, you're able to go ahead and constantly add to it so that when it comes time to inputting that information and transferring it into your resume, it's already there, that you don't have to sit back and reflect on those key contributions and accomplishments you have made to companies. You have it and formulated through a brag sheet. The other thing to always hold on to, if possible, is performance evaluations and written reviews, because those become great for inputting as quotes into your resume down the road.
Wonderful. Thanks for those comments as well, towards the end. The idea of a brag sheet, I think it's very important because it also helps you put yourself in a good, confident mindset when you're applying, because you look back at your accomplishments. It's a good time to reflect, makes you feel good about yourself. I think that's a great tip. So, Wendi, thank you very much for joining us all the way from Miami. I learned a lot. I was taking copious notes. I'm sure the audience also learned a lot. So thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thanks, folks, for listening to this episode of the Career Matters podcast. I have written a brief summary of the interview with links to Wendi's website and social media accounts. If you liked what you heard, feel free to subscribe to the Career Matters podcast on iTunes. If you enjoyed the episode and also learned something new, feel free to post a comment or a review. And if you really loved it, definitely go ahead and share this episode with your network. Until next time, this is Nisar Ahmed, your host for the Career Matters podcast. Thank you.